מסרו מיום ליום ישועתו. שירו לאדוני, שיר חדש, שירו לאדוני, כל הארץ, שירו לאדוני, ברכו שמו, בסרו מיום ליום ישועתו. שירו לאדוני, שיר חדש, שירו לאדוני, כל הארץ, שירו לאדוני, ברכו שמו, בסרו מיום ליום ישועתו. ספרו בגויים כבודו, לכל העמים נפלאותיו, כי גדול אדוני ומהולל מאוד, נורא הוא על כל אלוהים. שירו לאדוני, שיר חדש, שירו לאדוני, כל הארץ, שירו לאדוני, ברכו שמו, בסרו מיום ליום ישועתו. ספרו בגויים כבודו, לכל העמים נפלאותיו, כי גדול אדוני ומהולל מאוד, נורא הוא על כל אלוהים. שירו לאדוני, שיר חדש, שירו לאדוני, כל הארץ, שירו לאדוני, ברכו שמו, בסרו מיום ליום ישועתו. ספרו בגויים כבודו, לכל העמים נפלאותיו, כי גדול אדוני ומהולל מאוד, נורא הוא על כל אלוהים. שירו לאדוני, שירו לאדוני, שירו לאדוני. ספרו בגויים כבודו, לכל העמים נפלאותיו, כי גדול אדוני ומהולל מאוד, נורא הוא על כל אלוהים. שירו לאדוני, שיר חדש, שירו לאדוני, כל הארץ, שירו לאדוני, ברכו שמו, בסרו מיום ליום ישועתו. שירו לאדוני, שיר חדש, שירו לאדוני, כל הארץ, שירו לאדוני, ברכו שמו, בסרו מיום ליום ישועתו. שירו לאדוני, שיר חדש, שירו לאדוני, כל הארץ, שירו לאדוני, ברכו שמו, בסרו מיום ליום ישועתו. ספרו בגויים כבודו, לכל העמים נפלאותיו, כי גדול אדוני ומהולל מאוד, להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך העליון, לשמך העליון. ולזמר לשמך העליון. טוב, טוב, טוב להודות, טוב להודות לאדוני. טוב, טוב, טוב להודות, טוב להודות לאדוני. להגיד בבוקר חסדיך, ואמונתך בלילות, בלילות. טוב, טוב, טוב להודות, טוב להודות לאדוני. טוב, טוב, טוב להודות, טוב להודות לאדוני.
Shabbat Shalom, Boker Tov. I feel like our microphones are very loud. I think sometimes you wake up and you put a microphone on and it's just booming.
Less people than last night.
You think? No, I thought it was pretty loud last night too. Anyway, here we are. My voice may be booming, but I am so glad to be here with all of you. And I wanted to offer an intention for prayer that is not part of our regular Shabbat morning service, but it's on the bottom of page 218, if you want to find it. And then we'll go back to service 1 to continue with our service. So on the bottom of page 218, this particular reading spoke to me this morning as the sun shines through just a little and helps us prepare for a morning of reflection, prayer, hopefully spiritual uplift and peace as well. I need strength, humility, courage, patience. Strength to control my passions, humility to assess my own worth, courage to rise above defeats, patience to cleanse myself of imperfections, and wisdom to learn and live by our sacred teachings. Let me not be discouraged by my failings. Let me take heart from all that is good and noble in my character. Keep me from falling victim to cynicism. Teach me sincerity and enthusiasm. Endow me with perception and courage that I may serve others with compassion and love. Whatever it is that brings you to worship with us this morning, whether you're here in the Wolf Sanctuary or joining us online, we're glad you're here. We hope you will find what you are looking for. We turn back to page 76, or 77 actually, praising God for the gift first of our bodies and then of our souls, not taking for granted our ability to physically be present this morning, to wake up each day to face the day anew. Join me on the top of page 77 in the English. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe. With divine wisdom you have made our bodies, combining veins, arteries, and vital organs into a finely balanced network. Wondrous maker and sustainer of life, were one of them to fail, how well we are aware we would lack the strength to stand before you. Blessed are you, Adonai, source of our health and strength. Baruch atah Adonai, rofei chol basar, umafli la'asot. Page 78.
Elohai, neshama shenatata bi torai, atah v'rata, atah yitzarata, atah nefachta bi, v'atah meshamera b'kirbi. Neshama b'kirbi,
Elu Divarim She'ein Lahem Shi'or, on page 88. We remind ourselves of our obligations to each other, to family, to friends, to strangers, that our commitment to making our community more whole and holy, as the Talmud teaches, is what connects us to God. Join with me. These are things that are limitless, of which a person enjoys the fruit of the world, while the principle remains in the world to come. They are honoring one's father and mother, engaging in deeds of compassion, arriving early for study morning and evening, dealing graciously with guests, visiting the sick, providing for the wedding couple, accompanying the dead for burial, being devoted in prayer, and making peace among people. But the study of Torah encompasses them all. On page 100, we sing a song of praise for God. Yes? No?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Hallelujah from Psalm 150.
Hallelujah, Bekocho, Hallelujah, Bekiauzo, Hallelujah, Bigvorotav. Hallelujah, Kerogula, Hallelujah, Betekashofar, Hallelujah, Benevechinoi. Hallelujah, 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 Hallelujah. Hallelujah, betofu macho, Hallelujah, beminim beogav, Hallelujah, betziltzele shama. Hallelujah, betziltzele chua, kon shamote alaya. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah.
We turn to page 106 as we rise for Chatzi Kaddish and remain standing through the Shema.
Yitkadav, yitkadash shemei Rabbah. Amen. V'amad yivrach v'yamnich malchuteh. V'chayechon v'yamechon v'chayechu beit Yisrael. Ba'agala v'zeman kariv v'yimeru. Amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevorach. L'olam olamei amaya. Yitbarach, yitbarach v'yishtabach. Yitpar v'ytomar v'yitnaseh. V'yitador v'yitala v'yitala. Shemei l'kodesha b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shata. Tushbechata v'nechemata. Tamiran be'olema. V'yimeru. Amen. Ya Elai, Elai, ya Elai, Elai, ya Elai, 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 ya Elai, Elai.
On page 110, we continue with Yotzer Or, praising God for the gift of creation. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Yotzer Or uvarei choshech, Oseh Shalom uvarei et hakol, Hameir la'aretz v'ladarim alaha barachamim, Uvtuvo mechadesh b'chol yom tamid ma'aseh v'reshit. Ma rabu ma'asecha Adonai, kulam b'chokhma asita mal'a ha'aretz kinyanecha, tiparach Adonai Eloheinu al shevach ma'aseh yadecha, ve'al me'orei or she'asita yefa'arucha sela, or chadash al tzion ta'ir, v'nizkechu lanu mehera le'oro, baruch ata Adonai, Yotzer HaMe'orot. On the top of page 112, we read together. How deeply you have loved us, Adonai, our God, gracing us with surpassing compassion. On account of our forebears whose trust led you to teach them the laws of life, be gracious to us, teaching us as well. O merciful one, have mercy on us by making us able to understand and discern, to heed, learn, and teach, and lovingly to observe, perform, and fulfill all that is in your Torah.
והערננו בתורתך, ודבק ליבנו במצוותיך, ויחד לבבנו לאהבה ויראה את שמך, ולא נבוש ולא ניכלם ולא ניכשל לעולם ועד, כי בשם קודשך הגדול והנורא בטחנו, נגילה ונשמחה, נגילה ונשמחה בישועתך. וקרבתנו לשמך הגדול סלע באמת, להודות לך וליחדך באהבה. ברוך אתה אדוני, הבוחר בעמו ישראל באהבה. שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד. ברוך שם כבוד מלכותו לעולם ועד. You may be seated. Please join me on page 116 with Ve'ahavta. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
On the top of page 121, we read together. Emet, there is no place where you are not. Even in the wilderness, there is your word. Emet, that pen strokes of lightning, white fire, black flame, stir the soul's passion, guide our sacred way. True and enduring is Torah. Your truth for us is certain and established, now and forevermore. Like Moses, Miriam, and all Israel, we sing out and rejoice.
Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh, nor teilot osef ele, shira chadasha שבכל גאולים לשמך שפת היום יחד כולם הודו והמליכו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד.
Page 124, we rise for the Amidah.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el HaGadol, HaGibor v'Hanora, Elyon, Gomer Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei Hakol, V'Zocher Chastei Avot V'Imahot, U'Mevi Geula Livnei V'neihem, Le'ma'an Shema Be'ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshia U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיה כל התרב להושיע. משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מחכל חיים בחסד, מחיה הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומותיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומידו מלך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיה הכל. נקדש את שמך בעולם, כשם שמקדישים אותו לשמם הרוב, ככתוב על יד נביאך, וקרא זה ואמר, קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוך כל הארץ כבודו. אדיר אדירנו, אדוני אדוננו, מדיר שמך, מדיר שמך בכל הארץ. ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו. אחד הוא אלוהינו, הוא אבינו, הוא מלכנו, הוא מושיענו, והוא ישמיענו ברחמיו לעיני כל חי. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהיך ציון, לדור ודור, הללויה. לדור ודור נגיד גדלך, ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש ושבחך אלוהינו, מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש. אמן.
Please be seated. The great Haskalah, Jewish enlightenment, teacher, our leader, Achad Ha'am, wrote, more than the Jewish people have kept Shabbat, Shabbat has kept the Jewish people. And so on Yismechu, on page 132, is a declaration of the gift that Shabbat gives us, the opportunity to set time aside for refreshment, reflection, and hopefully rejuvenation to face the week ahead. So we sing with joy. I expect to hear you all. Yismechu.
Shomrei Shabbat v'korei oneg, Yismechu v'malachutecha, Shomrei Shabbat v'korei oneg.
V'kodeshei Shevi Shabbat,
Shabbat.
Kulam yisbehu, v'tangu mitovecha Shabbat.
Shabbat.
Chemdat yamim, ratzita bo v'kidashto Shabbat.
Shabbat.
Chemdat yamim oto karata Shabbat.
Shabbat.
Yismechu v'malachutecha, Shomrei Shabbat v'korei oneg, Yismechu v'malachutecha, Shomrei Shabbat v'korei oneg.
Zecher l'ma'aseh v'reshit Shabbat.
Shabbat.
Zecher l'ma'aseh v'reshit Shabbat.
Yismechu v'malachutecha, Shomrei Shabbat v'korei oneg, Yismechu v'malachutecha, Shomrei Shabbat v'korei oneg.
Together on 134. Our God and God of our ancestors, be pleased with our rest. Sanctify us with your mitzvot and grant us a share in your Torah. Satisfy us with your goodness and gladden us with your salvation. Purify our hearts to serve you in truth. In your gracious love, Adonai our God, grant us your holy Shabbat as a heritage. May Israel, who sanctifies your name, rest on Shabbat. Blessed are you, Adonai, who sanctifies Shabbat. Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. On 137, ever-present one, may we, your people Israel, be worthy in our deeds and our prayer. Wherever we live, wherever we seek you, in this land, in Zion restored, in all lands, you are our God, whom alone we serve and reverence. Baruch atah Adonai, she'otecha levarecha, b'yirah na'avod. On page 138, we read together. We acknowledge with thanks that you are Adonai, our God, and the God of our ancestors forever. You are the rock of our lives and the shield of our salvation in every generation. Let us thank you and praise you for our lives which are in your hand, for our souls which are in your care, for your miracles that we experience every day, and for your wondrous deeds and favors at every time of day, evening, morning, and noon. O good one, whose mercies never end, O compassionate one, whose kindness never fails, we forever put our hope in you. For all these things, O sovereign, let your name be forever praised and blessed. O God, our Redeemer and Helper, let all who live affirm you and praise your name in truth. Blessed are you, Adonai, your name is goodness, and you are worthy of thanksgiving. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha ulecha na'eh lechodot.
Sim, 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 shalom. Please take a moment for your own silent meditations.
Seder Kriyat Torah, service for the reading of Torah, page 245. Assemble the people, men, women, and children, and the strangers in your cities, to hear, to learn, to revere Adonai your God, to observe faithfully the words of this Torah. And let their children who do not yet know it hear, that they too may learn to revere Adonai your God. We rise in honor of the Torah.
Ein kamocha Elohim Adonai ben kemasecha malchutcha malchut kol olamim u'memeshaltecha bechol dor v'dor Adonai melech Adonai malach Adonai imloch le'olam va'ed Adonai oz le'amo yitin Adonai yevarech et amo v'shalom.
On the bottom of page 247, we read responsively. In this scroll is the secret of our people's life from Sinai until now.
Its teaching is love and justice, goodness and hope. Freedom is its gift to all who treasure it.
Baruch Shanatan Torah Torah Baruch Shanatan Torah Torah Le'amo Yisrael B'kedushato Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Adonai, הממלכה, והמתנשא לכל ארוש. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב, הנה מה טוב. יא לה 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 לה. הנה מה טוב, הנה מה טוב. יא לה 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 לה. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד.
Please be seated. We're having a slight technical difficulty. Our assistant who often makes the copies for our text study is on vacation, and I think it was never photocopied. So Cantor Berlin is going to go quickly look and see. Otherwise, she'll just quickly make some copies. Otherwise, she'll walk around with her iPad, and you'll listen very, very carefully, which is a bit of a shame because these are some fairly complicated commentaries. So Rabbi Jurgen was supposed to be our Torah teacher this morning, but she is ill, and so here I am. She's fine, she'll be fine. But I'm going to share the text study that she prepared. And if you were with us at Torah study this morning, we were focusing on the same opening section of this Torah portion. Parshat Tetzaveh is a continuation of the instructions for building the tabernacle, the Mishkan, the portable sanctuary of the Israelites that they were to build and put up and take down and build up and take down as they made their way through the wilderness over the 40 years of their wandering. And this section is really a transition from some instructions for building the tabernacle to the instructions for how to clothe the Kohanim, the priests, who would then be serving in the sanctuary. So the opening lines of our Parsha are the very end of chapter 27, and then they go right into, I have like weird, right? Is it making all sorts of, yeah. Goodness. It's really just one of those days. Okay, maybe that's better. The section starts by, it's for the very end of chapter 20. Oh my God. There we go. It's the very end of chapter 27 into 28. And one of the things that we question ourselves about, which we'll start our section with, is why do the two verses from the previous chapter, that's chapter 27, become the opening of our Parsha in chapter 28. Okay, so how are we doing on the feedback? Better, we think? Okay, good. All right, that seems a little better. All right. Amazing. Thank you, Cantor. I love a helpful community. So I'm going to hand this to you too so we can jump right in. Okay. I was giving everyone a little background of our Parsha, and so to note, as we studied in this morning's Torah study, there are two things that we're really going to focus on today. One is the way that the oil for the lighting of the lamp of the eternal flame is prepared, and then what the idea of having an eternal flame or a ner tamid is really all about. There is a bit of a difference of opinion about that, but how I think the connection between the preparation of the oil and the role of the priest is meant to help us get closer to God. All right, so Bernadette, would you read the Exodus section for us? Thank you.
You shall further instruct the Israelites to bring you clear oil of beaten olives for lighting, for kindling lamps regularly. Aaron and his son shall set them up in the tent of meeting, outside the curtain which is over the ark of the pact, to burn from evening to morning before the Lord. It shall be due from the Israelites for all time throughout the ages. You shall bring forward your brother Aaron with his sons from among the Israelites to serve me as priests. Aaron, Nadab, and Abihu, Eleazar and Ithamar, the sons of Aaron. Make sacral vestments for your brother Aaron for dignity and adornment. Next, you shall instruct all who are skillful, whom I have endowed with the gift of skill, to make Aaron's vestments for consecrating him to serve me as priest.
Thank you. So the first question that Rabbi Yergin has posed to us is, why do we have the two verses from the previous chapter, that is chapter 27, as our opening for Parsha, not Teruma, but Parsha Tetzaveh? Okay, Dimitri, would you read this Ibn Ezra for us?
I will further note the reason for the position of this Torah portion. After God finished enumerating all holy utensils, the veil, the tabernacle, the tent, the cover, the altar of the burnt offering, the courtyard, and the screen, God commenced to deal with those who ministered in the tabernacle. God explained the service which they alone were to perform. No stranger was permitted to perform the service alongside them. God opened with a command that they cause a lamp to burn using pure olive oil. They were not to employ any other oil. It is only fitting that those who ministered in the tabernacle were to be distinguished and set apart, both in family and in dress.
Thank you. So what I think Ibn Ezra is trying to say is that there is a connection to the very special way that the oil is supposed to be prepared, and a very particular group of people who are supposed to prepare that oil and then use that oil in service to God. Basically making a connection between the act of lifting up the light, lahalot, ner tamid, and the actors themselves. So from the Torah perspective, it's pretty clear that the only people who are supposed to prepare the oil, handle the oil, right, create the fire are these high priests, right? Aaron and his sons. They're named specifically. It doesn't just say the priests or the Levites. It specifically says Aaron and his 4 sons, right? And we also have this point that the oil needs to be the clear oil of beaten olives, right? So there's a lot of commentaries on the specificity of how that's supposed to be. So the oil is prepared in a very particular way, and the people who both prepare it and then use it for ritual purposes are very specific. Just a side note, that's not how later commentaries will understand the role of the light or the role of how that oil is prepared. If we think way forward to the story of the Maccabees, right, and how they, who were from a priestly class, it is to note, but that they were the ones who gathered the olives and prepared them in a special way, but they were not high priests per se, right? So it will dilute, so to speak, and evolve over time, but from a Torah perspective, very, very specific. Okay, so that's the connection between the item and the actor. That's why those two pieces are put together according to Ibn Ezra. Now, our second question on the other side of the page, what does this have to do with us now? Because we don't have the tabernacle, we don't even have the temple, and there are those who still connect to the priesthood, those who still consider themselves not only by heredity, Kohanim, but to have special privileges and obligations and requirements in that class. But for us, certainly as Reformed Jews, we don't. You know, it's like, that's so nice, your last name's Cohen, congratulations. We don't have prohibitions or special privileges for Kohanim. But what is it all about for us? We'll start with Sfas Emes, Sfat Emet. Samantha, will you read that? And after, if you could just pause after the first paragraph before the ellipse.
Okay.
In the Midrash, you command, Adonai named you verdant olive tree, fair with choice fruit, Jeremiah 11:16. There is a hidden point within the souls of Israel, which the scripture says, if you seek it as to do silver and search for it as treasures. Is that where you needed me to stop, or is it at the paragraph? Okay. This inwardness reveals itself as the result of great effort, a struggle of the soul and the body to purify the physical. Thus we are like the verdant olive tree. What an effort it is to bring forth that oil.
Okay, so we're going to stop there. Sfas emes, pretty esoteric, okay? We have this idea that it takes great effort to prepare this oil. It is very special and unique. It's not pressed, it's not crushed, it's beaten. As we were talking about earlier, like with a mortar and a pestle, right? So perhaps the best, but it's small, a small batch situation, right? And the Israelites, the Hebrews, are a remnant. They are a very small group of people. So we are precious and pure to God because we are so small, just like this oil is very particular. Okay, so the oil is very particular and special, and the Israelites / the Jews are also very special. Why are we so special? What makes Jewish people so special according to Torah? Anyone? We're Am Segula. God chose us. What did God choose us to do?
We're part of a covenant with God, and we're chosen to bring God's words to all.
Okay, good. So we are chosen. We have a special brit, a covenant with God, and it is our job to be a light unto the nations, right? But what do we have to do? What are our requirements to fulfill our side of the covenant? We're supposed to follow all the commandments. That's right. So 613 commandments. That's a lot of commandments, right? So on one hand, we are chosen. On one hand, we are special, but it takes a lot of effort, focus, and concentration to actually fulfill the covenant to its fullest, certainly from a traditional perspective, right? So just like the olive oil is very particular, special, unique, shows a connection to God, so too are the Israelites special because they follow those commandments. And only a very special Meshugana group of people, I might add, are going to fulfill every single one of those commandments. Okay, so that is why, for Sfas emes, we are like that verdant olive tree and that very pure and beaten olive. Okay, so then, I believe this is from Sfas emes, it's the Ger Rebbe of Alter, actually, who wrote Sfas emes. He gives us a very particular challenge, which I think is super interesting. Jeremy, will you read that second part of that paragraph? Thank you, Cantor.
Set aside one quality or one special mitzvah about which you take fabulous care. Through this, you'll be able to draw light and redemption to all your qualities. From them shall come tent pegs. The choosing of Aaron set firm grounding for Israel's tent.
Okay, so first, Sfas emes is saying, think about an aspect of yourself or a mitzvah that you fulfill, that you do, either that you're really, really proud of or that you really do awesomely at, right? And then refers to the tent pegs. Okay, so the tent pegs, essential, foundational, humble, hidden, not very sexy, right? But without them, the entire enterprise falls apart, right? So think just for a moment, I'm not gonna ask you to share, but just think, okay, about a ritual in your life, religious or otherwise, to which you give particular, you have intention, you prepare, and you execute it pretty much perfectly almost every time. Personally, when I was writing this, I was thinking about how I make coffee, right? It's very important that I make it in a very specific way. And a good cup of coffee really can be a religious experience, especially first thing in the morning, right? So my point being, it doesn't have to be, oh, I daven the Shema, and with perfect intention, right? It could be any of these things, but I think the idea of intention, preparation, and execution helps us define our purpose. And once you figure that out for one thing, whether it's religious or otherwise, can you then extend that idea to other parts of your life? Right? And then by extension, enhance, improve, elevate your spiritual life as well. Okay, so when we think about lifting up that light, it's a lot more than just the physical light. It's meant to transport us or extend to a whole other level of our spiritual lives as well. Okay, so now Orach Chaim is going to focus on what this idea of titzaveh is all about. Billy, will you read the Orach Chaim?
Perhaps the expression tetzaveh in our verse alludes to a thought expressed in the Zohar, section 1, page 83, that we find a spark of Moses' soul within the soul of every Torah scholar. That is why we have an instance in Sukkah 39 where the scholars called each other Moses. This was because Moses personified the soul that is immersed in Torah study. When the Torah uses the expression va'ata tetzaveh, this may also be parallel to Psalms 91:11, in which the psalmist describes God as dispatching God's angels to keep company with deserving Jews as they are of equal status. There is no worthier pursuit than the study of Torah, which supplies all enlightenment for the world.
Okay, so I believe Orach Chaim is equating the beating of the olives to make the oil and the study of Torah, right? Which is to say there are quick and easy and dirty ways to study Torah, right? You read the verses, off you go. You don't even say, what do those mean? You're just like, oh, I read the Torah, I studied the Torah, great. And then there's like what we're doing right now, or what, to parse over a line of Torah and what does it mean, and how do I connect it to my life, and how can I bring its truth into the world? Pure beaten olives, right? And so the idea that to be like Moses in the study of Torah means to take it exceedingly seriously, and for one scholar to say to another scholar, hey, Moses, right, is meant to be the ultimate compliment. That it's as if you were at Mount Sinai with God with this incredibly intimate, high level of comprehension of what the commandments are all about. Billy, why don't you keep going? Because it's still Orach Chaim. The Torah continues.
The Torah continues, lahalot ner tamid, to cause a lamp to burn continually. The expression tamid denotes that the burning will be of unlimited duration. The homiletical meaning is that Israel should never again experience periods of spiritual darkness. Perhaps the expression la'amor lahalot ner tamid, for lighting to cause a lamp to burn continually, means that his oil should light the great luminary in a manner similar to the period the prophet Isaiah 62:8 speaks about when he says, I will not ever again give your grain to your enemies for food, i.e., you will proceed to rise ever higher.
So I was pondering, what does this teaching have to do with Rabbi Jurgen's question, right? Which is like, what does this mean for us now? And I think, Orach Chaim asks the question, I believe, like, how do we avoid spiritual darkness in our lives? Especially at a time like now, when there are so many things going on in the world, maybe in our lives, that could bring us to that place. I started reading I think it was an op-ed in the New York Times this morning, where it said that, the pandemic is making us feel older. And she's like, I'm 42. I started at the pandemic, I was 42, and now I'm 60, right? Like, I didn't get to finish the whole thing. But it was talking about how being in moments of darkness can really, no offense to anyone who's 60, right? It's just the differentiation, that it could really bring us down and weigh us down, right? And I think it goes back to what the Sfas Emes was talking about, that when we bring intention, when we prepare, and when we focus to execute the daily activities of our lives, but also in the ways we behave and act towards other people, then we're able to push that darkness aside. In Torah Study Day, we read a commentary by Rabbi Harold Kushner, who pointed out that light is something that you cannot see, but it helps you see, right? And that it's something that is, and so God is also in that same way, something that we can experience without being able to see or touch. And that the light is a physical embodiment of God. So God's presence can nourish us and show us the way, just like light can illuminate our lives and our relationship with other people as well. So when we think about then our Ner Tamid, our eternal light, that is there physically to represent that flame that's supposed to be inside of us that helps us connect to God, then we understand that the only way to make it Tamid, eternal, everlasting, is if we put that intention and preparation into the acts and the behavior and the relationships of our life every single day. So, Cantor's going to chant this section of text for us. We're going to share in the blessing together, which is on page 250. Yes, it is. So please turn to page 250. You can follow along in the Hebrew as we share our text for this morning.
Baruch hu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et torto. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Ve'ata titzavet b'nei Yisrael, v'ikchu elecha shemen zayit zach, katit lamaor leha'alot ner tamid, be'ohel moed michutz laparochet, asher al haidut ya'aroch ito Aharon ubanav me'erev ad boker lifnei Adonai chukat olam ledorotam me'et b'nei Israel ve'ata hakrev elecha et Aharon achicha ve'et banav oto mitoch b'nei Israel lechahanoli Aharon Nadav Avihu Elazar v'itamar b'nei Aharon ve'asita vigdei kodesh le'Aharon achicha lechavod ultifaret ve'ata tidaber el kol chachmei lev asher miletiv ruach chochma ve'asu et bigdei Aharon lekadsho lechahanoli.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. In the presence of Torah, we offer prayers of healing for those who face the future not fully whole. Mishaberach avotenu Avraham Yitzchak v'Yaakov v'imotenu Sarai Rivka Leah v'Rachel. May the one who blessed our ancestors before us bring strength to all those who struggle with sickness and wholeness, to all those who long to be healed. If there's someone in your life, someone who hold in your hearts in need of healing, I invite you to think about them, picture them, close your eyes if you wish, and then whisper their names out loud. And so strengthened by each other's presence, linking the names of those who are in our hearts to those who are listed on our Mishaberach healing lists. If you're watching on live stream, it's on your screen now, or it's in our order of service. We join together singing Mishaberach, our prayer for healing, on page 253.
Mishaberach avotenu mikol habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength
and let us say, Amen. Mi sheberach imotenu mikol habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shelema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
We turn back to page 252 as we rise in honor of the Torah.
וזאת התורה ששם משה לפני בני ישראל, על פי אדוני ביד משה. וזאת התורה ששם משה לפני בני ישראל, על פי אדוני ביד משה. יאי לי 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 לי, יאי לי 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 לי, יאי לי 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 לי, יאי לי לי לי, יאי לי לי לי, יאי לי 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 לי, יאי לי 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 לי. Page 256. עת חיים היא למחזיקים בה, ותומכיה מאושר דרכיה, תחינום בכל נתיבותיה, שלום השיבנו אדוני אליך ונשובה, חדש ימינו כקדם.
We continue with the concluding portion of our service. Aleinu is on page 283.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שהוא שם חלקנו לייחד את שמו, וגור עלינו להמליך מלכותו, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
You may be seated. As we turn to page 289 for our memorial meditation, we note with sadness the deaths of Herman Buddy Meyer Jr., father of Dr. Jennifer and Scott Bankler, grandfather of Benjamin and William, Mona Fetter Rubenstein, mother of David and Patricia Rubenstein, Amy and Hank Strickland, Margot and Tracy Wood, Sydney and Susan Rubenstein, and Bruce and Jeanette Rubenstein, grandmother to 12 and great-grandmother to 11. as well as Carol Hendon, sister of Bruce and Dana Hendon, and aunt of Richard and Katie Hendon, Amy and Peter Shaper, and Courtney and Dave Newman. From the New Union Prayer Book, meditation number 2. In nature's ebb and flow, God's eternal law abides. When tears dim our vision or grief clouds our understanding, we often lose sight of God's eternal plan. Yet we know that growth and decay, life and death, all reveal a divine purpose. God, who is our support in the struggles of life, is also our hope in death. We have set God before us and shall not despair. In God's hands are the souls of all the living and the spirits of all flesh. Under God's protection we abide, and by God's love are we comforted. O life of our life, soul of our soul, cause your light to shine into our hearts and fill our spirits with abiding trust in you. On this Shabbat, we consecrate the yard sites observed this week of Joseph Alexander, Lee Ehrenstein, Burton Barkin, Dr. James Burler, Amelia Lee Braha, Isidore Brenner, Abraham Brooks, Woldemar Brookhouse Leppi, Selig H. Carr, Sam Churgan, Dr. Louis Cohen, Maud Dalkowitz, S. Godfrey Dalkowitz, Ralph Davidson, Maria Luisa Elizondo de Leon, Harold J. Densky, Theodore Eklov, Milton Eichelbaum, Esther Flashberg, Ralph Flax, Jonas Martin, Joe Frost Sr., Gertrude Geisler, Benjamin Glasser, Herman Goldberg, George Goldman, Nat Goldsmith, Ruth Goldsmith Goodman, Hannah Grossman, Alex Half, Stuart Handmaker, Gerald Harris, James E. Hawkins, Francis Joy Hoffman, James Dick Jr., Rosalie Reba Cantor, Fanita Gerwitz Koch, Dr. Eleanor Bitsy Comet, Helen Coppell, Mary Lang, Phyllis Lapine, Gregory Ross Levy, Esther Lehman, David A. Lone, Phyllis Lyon, Alan Mandel, Eleanor Mascal, Barry Modelson, Marion Pope Owens, Weldon Place, Seymour Panamone, Fred Reisberg, Sarah May Rips, Mildred Rogers, Robert S. Rossow, Barbara Rubenstein, Lucille H. Seknowitz, Herbert M. Schrader, Rose Sherman, Natalie P. Schultz, Fred Siegel, Herman Zvi Singer, Saul Smolens, Betty Smolkin, Sura Strelke, Dr. Alfred Sumberg, Simon Ute, Francis Vogel, Ann Coleman-Wald, Ray Bodenheimer-Wallach, and Raymond Zucker. To their memories, we link the names of 3 who in the last 30 days, Shloshim, have been laid to their eternal rest: Sherman Kimmelblatt, Harriet Newman, and Gary Allen Wagner. And then to their names, we link the memories of 2 who just this past week were laid to their rest. They passed away, their families observing the period of Shiva. Barbara Bethane, wife of Linda, stepmother of Robin and Scott Rosen and Susan and Peter Giusti, step-grandmother of Zachary Rosen and Ashley Rosen, Nicholas and Amanda Giusti and Caroline Giusti, sister of David and Dina Bredhoff, Mark and Bev Bredhoff, John and Linda Bredhoff, and Doug Knoll. And Ruth Levinson Lerner, mother of Joni Lerner Ross and Peggy and Dr. Marvin Belasco, grandmother of doctors Jennifer and Devin Peck, Brooke and Rick Hernandez, Bradley and Catherine Belasco, and Victoria Ross Newser, and beloved sister to Margie Gernsbacher. Zichronam Livracha, may their memories be for blessing, along with the memories of those who we hold in our hearts each and every day. Our griefs and sympathies are mingled as we rise together, one congregation, turning to page 294 to share in the words of the Mourner's Kaddish together. Yitz gadal v'yit kadash shemerabah, be'alma divrach yeruteh v'yamlich malchuteh, v'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chaye d'chol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'yizman kariv v'yimru amen. Yehei shmei rabah mivarach le'olam omei omaya, yiparach v'yishtabach v'yipa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shemei d'kudashah b'rechu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, da'amiram be'alma v'yimru amen. Yehei shlama rava min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, Hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'yamru amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us and to all Israel, to which we say, Amen. Our closing song is Ein Kelohenu, yes? Yeah. On page 322.
Ein Kelohenu, ein Kadonenu, ein Kemokeinu, ein Kemoshienu, Michelohenu, Michadonenu, Michemokeinu, Michemoshienu, Nod el Eloheinu, Nod el Adonenu, Nod el Emokeinu, Nod el Emoshienu, Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adonenu, Baruch Mokeinu, Baruch Moshienu, Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adonenu, Atahu Mokeinu, Atahu Moshienu.
Shabbat Shalom.